Hey, so it's Astrid Astrolabe, Christy Lee. Although I think actually the one that I channel most for this kind of science consciousness seraphic math stuff is actually Balthamas, the seraphic mathematician or seraphic mathematician architect, something like that. Anyway, I got a whole bunch of stuff about. I've been listening to a book on, well, like mathematics as the concept of the basic element of our universe versus physics describing, I don't know, physical things like so that maybe mathematics is actually the architecture of everything in our universe. But so this thing came to me of physics is the tool we use to compare commonalities of the experiences we believe we are having. So physics doesn't actually say what is happening, but we use physics and all of the things around it, like uh, mathematics and all the other stuff of saying we all agree that by using this, that description does in fact describe what I am seeing too. It's like, okay, so with this, we acknowledge that this is what we think we are experiencing at the same time, but it doesn't actually tell you what is happening. Anyway, so there's there's that point, right, between the the quantum kind of switching from being in that both and state to the point where it cannot be in the both and state anymore. It is either or, right? So at some point, like with the slit experiment, that once the particle has been viewed, then it has made kind of that decision, like whatever that decision is, but it's like the spin is going to be, or it's going to be one or the other by having been viewed. So I was thinking, well, with spin, it's that same thing. Things will either be up, down, or left, right, and you can either know one or the other. I thought, well, maybe um, that is kind of the same thing as like the base level of consciousness. Like somehow, if maybe gravitons are somehow tiny elements of consciousness and they have mass, and I mean, who knows, that's probably out there, but that somehow if we could get a mathematics to communicate, or not communicate, but like kind of a mathematics of consciousness, kind of like we have mathematics of physics, that then we could really, what could we do? Well, we could understand like how much density of, like, what's the minimum amount of density of self-awareness to make a difference in the universe. And I don't know, maybe it feels like it has that spin has something to do with that, or that there's some kind of important line of demarcation, right, between the world of possibility where everything is both and, like the Schrodinger world, and then there's that point, it goes through, and then a decision has been made, it has been viewed, it is either this or that, it is one or the other, it has flipped from total amorphous to entering the binary world, which is the world of the macro, which is the world of that decision being made every instant of every moment in the grand unfolding of always being here now, right? With time. Anyway, and that maybe that has to do with the brains, like BRANES of string theory, that maybe where brains of multiverse brains are touching, that kind of like in that metaphysical touching is, I don't know, maybe that's that point of no return of being a non-thing and a thing. Anyway, so what was I think? I was thinking of that as like a gravity line, but like there's in yes, back to seraphic math, because I think seraphic math is a great word and it sounds wonderful and it's very woo, but it's not really. So I think now, what I don't really mean that we're talking to angels, but in some sense, if we could figure out, using something like math, so a set of symbols that represent things or concepts, whatever, that then accurately do describe what you're looking at. So if we could figure out what that is for consciousness and figure out how to strip consciousness down more and more, kind of like we've done with particles, right? If we could, but we just, I feel like we're not even anywhere close, but we maybe we could be if we could just get some genius to figure that out. But that somebody in my group this morning was talking about a god spark, and it's like, oh, maybe that's really gravitons are that base element of consciousness somehow, that gravity and consciousness, I mean, that doesn't make any sense either, so never mind. But there's something, it feels like if there's this huge density on our planet of a massive collection of self-awareness that may not exist anywhere else actually in our galaxy, maybe even the universe, but that would mean that all the dark matter would just be gravitoned into us. So anyway, that's probably not it, but we can tell the effects of that, say a graviton or something, enough self-awareness that the universe knows it's being observed, and whatever is being observed has gone from being all possibilities to one. And that that is kind of like that is the creation of the universe again and again and again and again and again, going from every possibility to this, to this, to this, just again and again and again. And that if, I mean, there can't be some outside creator looking in on it. It is us within ourselves that does it. And it gets a bit meta in there. But so my thought was that there's this concept of Metatron, who is the voice of like allness or oneness or I amness or whatever. So self awareness, let's say. So it would be really cool if this, whatever this kind of mathematics is that works with consciousness, it would kind of go along with that. So I was like, oh, well, maybe that's really what this seraphic math is that it's going to allow us to have a better sense of what consciousness is, which really, in some ways, is in even, well, it's just another facet of seeing into the depths of the universe and understanding the universe in which we find ourselves. But this time it's in our experiential only, because that's all we ever get as humans. We can only ever know what's going on in the black box, inside the skull, inside the whatever, right? Or we're all in a matrix, whichever. Can't tell the difference, so can't disprove it. So I'm not going to go there again. But anyway, just thinking a lot about that today. So a whole bunch of physics and consciousness, and that it feels like that there's something integral about spin, and that there's something really important about the fact that at the base level particles are compelled really to be in that choice. They can't just stay in a superposition forever. At some point when they get slightly bigger or have more density, they don't get to stay in impermanence. The element is forced into something, and that maybe there's something about that point, and probably it has a name in physics anyway, but or whatever it is, where that line that gets crossed between, okay, I've said that 15 times. Never mind. This is why I don't do videos very much, because I just ramble. But that was my main thing, is about particle spin, my seraphic math, which I believe is going to be some kind of mathematics or something mathematics like, basically a way to explore consciousness that I'm hoping that we get to as a species so that we can help ourselves. Because as I make this in early June of 2022, there's a lot going on that feels very unsettling, but I just need to remind myself that my timeline is one in which I am a futurist, and I have lots of visions for ways that things cannot go into a dystopia, and that it's important for people to keep putting that energy out there. So I'm sending out my optimistic, visionary napalm of lobbing these chunks of optimism into social media, because I've decided that's what I was supposed to do. Anyway, I haven't talked about this a whole lot on here because I don't do a whole lot on here, but one of the biggest, newest kind of manifestations that was really exciting for me was to realize that Balthamos is one of mine. I have Malachite and Urukai who have also been, I do that because they have been the guides behind me. I got one on each side, Malachi and Urukai, and um, have realized that part of the reason why I've loved that name Balthamos so much is that that is kind of my version of my highest self, so my seraphic self, basically. And that, like Astrid is the engineer. I know that, and I've got Cisterna, who's like healing water, and a bunch. Well, the dragon, and so I've got Skyfire and all the others. But Balthamos is my architect, so it seems like he's doing, and it's kind of a he. The When I get all the stuff about the kind of communication with consciousness, and maybe it's trying to find that gap, building the bridge between heaven and earth, between the quantum and the macro, and that there's something like I got the vision of like doing this and got the wings going, right? Of like putting that actual higher dimensional of, yeah, we can make this happen. Let me put that energy out there. Let me beat the wings of possibility and learning more about ourselves, because being self-aware feels like an incredibly rare privilege. So there's that. That's what I got. Uh, I was just putting it all in my spiritual journal with all my fun. Wee. So anyway, hopefully, if somebody that will mean something to somebody at some point, and perhaps it will be helpful for you on your journey. Definitely, I've tuned into different aspects of myself. I'm a very creative person. I'm a writer. I knit, I dance, sing, blah blah. I do not blah blah. Handwrite letters, make cards, whatever. Not whatever. I do a lot of creative things, and feel that at different times I bring out different personality aspects without it being like taken over, or I don't know who is where. I don't, it's nothing like that. But just recognizing that on my spiritual path, it's a very creative place with lots of different folks that seem to bring different messages that I then either share or write down or both. So that's the end of that. Love you. Hope you're having a Hope your journey is going well. And thanks for sharing space with me.